Okay, good morning. So we are doing today, on Shavas Patamas, we're doing today of Hayam and Aleph. But we are on Chavdalim Beis, and yesterday we talked about the Maisa, when we finished about basically the end of the narrow lines, where the last thing that we had just said was where Mary Bar Shmuel, he was on the other side by the river Har Papa, and he saw that the angels were putting flour on boats, and that these would be able to be used to be sold as part of the miracle that had been received. That Rav Yehuda was, merely taking off a shoe, and all of a sudden there would be enough food. And so the Gemara says that the advice was that don't take from this flour because this is Ma'aser Nisim. Let's wait till tomorrow. Tomorrow there'll be other flour that comes in, and therefore it will be better to wait. Um, what does Rashi say? Rashi says, "Amalahu Ma'aser Nisim." Rashi says, "V'amed efshar l'israchik Ma'aser Nisim yersei tov v'nachai." Whatever you could avoid from Ma'aser Nisim, it's better. So I said I was going to mention a couple of things about this today. So what I had in mind is as follows: when we're saying that Rav Mary Bar Shmuel says you have to avoid this flour because it's Ma'aser Nisim, he's saying that it's usher. It's usher to use things that come about from an ace. On that, we have to make a couple of distinctions. First of all, it clearly can't be aser. Certain ma'aser that we find in Tanakh are deliberately meant to be sold. For example, look in the beginning of Malachim Beis. So there you have the ma'aser of Elisha with the woman, right? And what does he do with the woman? He tells her, "Get me a lot of jugs, as many as you can find. Get from the whole town." He's pouring oil in the jugs, and when he's done pouring the oil in all the jugs, so he tells her, "Go out and sell the jugs of oil, and with that money, you can pay back your creditors, and with the extra money that you're going to have, you could live. You can live on it." So, what is it specifically? The whole command of this nation was to go sell it. It's obviously no problem, my Sinisim. The way I think of, or one of the ways I think about this topic, is according to Chazal, the Midrashim say that the Jews who were doing business with the Egyptians, right? A lot of the Jews who died during Cheshach, they didn't want to leave during Makkah's Cheshach. Why didn't they want to leave? Because they were doing great. Why are they doing great? Because that whole year of all the Nisim and Mitzrayim, they kept on selling. You want a drink? You only have blood. I'll sell you some water. You want a place to sleep that's not going to have frogs? You come to my hotel. So Jews are making money, and we're doing very well. So Ma'aser Nisim, you're allowed to be. The measures are saying that's what the Jews did. You're allowed to get wealthy in Ma'aser Nisim. In fact, this question of whether or not you're allowed to do business on Ma'aser Nisim, is it literally usher? Or as Rashi says over here, Rashi doesn't say use the lashon of usher. Rashi says, "V'amed de'efshar le'israchik Ma'aser Nisim." Whatever you could avoid it, it's better to avoid it. But clearly, in the case of Elisha, when he's telling them what to do, that's the command. That is inherently the nace. So the first distinction is any nace that's openly in Tanakh that's telling you to do something, that's clearly not an issue. What we're talking about is really on the level of a drash, on the level of a non-Tanakh kind of a nace. So it seems to me that we can't say that it's aser, and that's the reason Rashi is using the word richud. It's not literally aser. In fact, there are some achrein who point this out. It's not really aser. So then, what's the issue? Then why is it advisable to try to avoid an ace as much as possible? The answer is back on top from the page we saw. The Gemara said, in the middle of the page, the Gemara said, Rabbi Yanai says, "Lo'el mal yama adam makom sakana, v'yama oisen li nes." The person shouldn't stand in a dangerous situation and say, "Oh, it's not a problem. They're going to do a nace for me because shemein oisen li nes." Maybe they're not going to do a nace for him. V'im tim tzolaymar oisen li nes, and if in fact they are going to do a nace for him, menakim lem b'zchuyosav, then they're going to take off the zchuyos of the person. And Rav Hanan learns out, the Gemara continues, Rav Hanan, micro, what's the source of this? That if somebody gets an ace for them, they're going to lose some scores. Because the pasuk says, emes. Right? Yaakov Avinu was afraid of facing Esav, even though Hashem promised everything's going to be great. Why? because he had so many nisim that happened, so much good things that happened to him at the house of Lavan to save him from Lavan and all of his machinations. So he was afraid. So the idea then is that you shouldn't be doing business with. You shouldn't be getting that flour. You shouldn't be trying to live off of an ace, not in the sense of Isser, but in the sense of Richuk, as much as possible to avoid it. Why? Because every time you do utilize some sort of nace, something supernatural, it's by definition taking away whatever space you have, lowering it down. The Chida writes in his commentary on Chumash in Nachal Kidumim, the Chida writes that when the Jews got the man, the pasuk says that the Jewish people said to Moshe, "Manu, what is this? What is this substance that were found?" So he says it's an atrikin from Mais and Nisim. They were asking Moshe Rabbeinu, "What should we do?" Manhu, Mais and Nisim. What is this? Are we allowed to eat from this? Are we allowed to utilize it? And Hashem says, "No, Hu Alechem." This is the response that Chidos Hashem saying to Moshe, "No, this is the bread. This is the one I have planned for you, and therefore there is no issue to partake of it." The Gemara tells us in Sanhedrin and Samachet that there were people that would create themselves. We had in the Gemara before about an igla tilta, a young calf. They would prepare themselves every Shabbos to eat a young calf. Was that us to do, to eat from it, to sustain themselves off it? That's what they did. The Gemara in Yuma Lamates talks about the Shlomo Melech. He planted miraculous trees that they grew golden fruit. Again, what it means, I don't know exactly, but the Gemara over there says it was a parnasa for the Kohanim. They would take the golden fruit and sell it and make a parnasa for the Kohanim. That's clearly doing parnasa with mais and nisim. Is it usher? Again, same idea as to, it's not really that it's usher, but it takes away chosim. The more you could avoid it, the better. And over here, we're going to have Lou in the next Gemara today. It's a good segue. The whole story of Rav Chinim and Daisa, we're going to have a whole story over here about how to avoid, as much as possible, Mais and Nisim. All right, so we're up to the Gemara, about 3 or 4 lines up from the wide lines on Chof Dalad and Beis. Rava Ikla Hagrunya. Right, Rava got to a town, Hagrunya, Gozer Ta'anisa V'loi Asa Mitra. He was Gozer at Taanit and the raid didn't come. Amar Lahu, Bisu Kule Alma B'Tanasaichu, says to everybody, stay in your Taanit. In other words, normally when they would do the fast for the rain, right, so after the end of the fast, they would, at night, they would eat. They would fast again, right? They would do Monday, Thursday, Monday, but they didn't fast at night. Right? When the fast was over, they would go to eat. So Rava said to them, listen, continue in the fast through the night. L'machar, the next morning, whoever had a dream, tell me what the dream was. Right? The famous Rabbi Elazar ben Agrunya said, L'didi ekarian, b'chalmi. He says, I saw a dream, and in my dream it occurred the following: Shalom Tov, L'Rav Tov, right? Hello, right? To a good man, Mribain Tov, from a good master, that does good to his people. In other words, what would you imagine from hearing such a dream? Amar, Rava says, Shemami no. I see from this Eis Rotzani, this is an Eis Rotz, and it's a good moment. Miboy Rachme, we should all daven. Right, it's a good moment. That person had such a good dream. They came to him in a dream like this, wonderful things. Right, like the Gemara in the very end of Yuma, the Gemara says over there, somebody has a dream which says Chanina, Chanan, right? It's Chainin is like must be a good sign. Hashem's going to be doing good stuff for somebody. So if somebody sees a dream which says Shalom Tov, L'Rav Tov, Riban Tov, the mitzvah Meitiv Lam. I mean, how many more times can you see Tov? So Shema Mino, it's Eis Ratzon. Let's daven now. Eis Ratzon doesn't mean there's rain. It means that now you have to daven. It's a good time that you could daven. Potentially Hashem will answer the V'asi Mitra, and therefore the rain came. I have a particular question on this Gemara. Everybody remembers the Gemara in Brachos Navav, what we had with Bar Hedya. And over there, what was the Gemara? The Gemara had a distinction between Abaya and Rava. Abaya paid Bar Hedya to interpret the dreams, and he gave good interpretations. Rava was cheap. he refused to pay, and he got bad interpretations. And in the end, Rava changed it up and he started paying and he got good interpretations. But over there, the Gemara says that they were on a boat one time, right? And Barhedia's book of Chalemas dropped, and Rava opened it up. And what did it say in there? Kol Chalemas Heichel Achar Peh. Right? Kol Chalemas Heichel Achar Pisra. And what does it mean? It means all the dreams, they come basically upon the way the one who's giving over the interpretation interprets it. So you can have a bad dream that's interpreted well, as you have that whole page over there in the Gemara, and nevertheless, you could have read these dreams being terrible, and nevertheless they're turned into the good. So I don't understand. Rava has to say that Shmamina Eis Ratzani Miboy Rachme Vasi Mitra, and if it was the dream was not Shmamina Eis Ratzani, he couldn't have turned it into an Eis Ratzan. Not 100% clear. All right. In any event, continues the Gemara. Who gavra the Echayev Nagdab Vedina de Rava Mishon the Balkusis. There was a person who was Mechayev Malkus in the basin of Rava. Why? Because he was Baal Akusis. Remember, we also had that Gemara that led us to the whole Masira Gemara there in Brachas Nemches, the Pshila, where somebody was also Baal Akusis, and over there Pshila gave him Malkus. In that situation, that person went then to the government to complain. In this situation, the person died. We know, generally speaking, that when they gave Malchus, they were very careful, right? The person would merely urinate, right? They would have to stop the Malchus, right? It was already enough kisufa. So here, somehow they managed to give him Malchus, and they didn't chat that the guy was dying. Nagde Rav will miss, right? They were giving him Malchus because he was Balkusis, and they hit him hard enough that he mamish died. So Ishtama Milsa Beishavar Malka. They heard about it by the king. They wanted to hurt Rava. They want to punish Rava. Why? Because you're giving Malchus. What right do you have to give Malchus? And you're killing people. Like, it's not the court systems. They want to give Rava problems. Amrale Ifra Hormes Ima de Shvar Malka. So the mother of Shvar Malka, her name was Ifra Hormes. Right? Sounds like the Hormuz, right? So what did she say? So she said to her son, "Amrle Ifra Hormes Imed Shvar Malka Lebra." So she says to her son, "Loy lahavi lach esek devarim b'hadei Yehudoi." Don't mess around with these Jews. The Chomanda Bayin Mimara Yavlu, because whatever they ask their God, they're going to get. Now you should just know the background. The Gemara tells us about Ifra Hormes and Nida on Chaf and Beis. The Gemara over there says that another Ma'aseh day with Rava, whether she became Jewish or she was considering being Jewish or whatever exactly it was, that she sent samples of her Nida blood to Rava. And Rava would like smell it, look at it, and give her answers. And she decided to test them once she sent them, I think, 60 different types of examples of blood, including blood of animals and things. And one of the things that she said, blood from lice. I don't know how much blood lice produce and how much lice you need to produce such amount of blood. But whatever it was, she sent them blood of lice. And Rava sent her back a comb that you kill the lice with. And so she was blown away by the Jews. So I'm not sure if this story took place before or this story took place after. But in any event, she tells her son, don't mess around with the Jews. You want to start out with Rava? Don't mess around with them. Whatever the Jews ask, their God gives them. So Amar Allah Mahi. So he asks his mother, what is it that the Jews ask for that everything, they get? And she said, Bain Rachamin Vasim Mitra. They ask for rain and they get it. Amar Allah. So he said to his mother, Ahum Mishum de Zimna de Mitru. They ask for rain when it's the rainy season. Okay. Not such a big deal. El Liboy Rachma Idna. It's Kuvas Tammuz. I guess it was in the middle of the summer, the story. He says, let him ask for rain today in the middle of the summer. Velesi Mitra, let the rain come now. That would be a big deal, right? As we say in Haimish, that's a kunz, right? I mean, to say that it's going to be the rain when it's in the middle of the winter, okay, nice, but it's not very impressive. So they sent a message from Ifra Hormes to Rava. She says, focus, right? Have kavana, ask Hashem that the rain should come. So Rava understood that he has to do this, that there's a danger. So he did. He davened for rain, but unfortunately the rain did not come. Amar Lefanav. So he says, Rabbeinu Shalom, Elohim, the pasuk in Tehillim. Right? We heard in our ears, our fathers told us, all the unbelievable things, all the unbelievable wonders that you did, Amal, that you did once. But we haven't seen any of it. We haven't seen this unbelievable stuff that you have done. And as a result of this prayer, Asa Mitra Ad, the Shofach Marzeve the Tzipari Diglas. Mamish, there was so much rain. Diglas is the river Tigris, or the Chidakel. So Mamish, so much rain was coming at the Shofach Marzeve the Tzipari Diglas. Or as the side says, the Mechayz, it makes sense, probably more Mechayz than Tzipari. First of all, Tzipari is in the land of Israel. But second of all, Rava is in Mechayza. So it makes sense to say Mechayza. So the gutters in Mechayza were mamish pouring rain into the Tigris. That's how much rain there was. Yeah. So that's not the end of the story. Continues the Gemara. Asa Avua, Rava's father came as Chazle B'chalma. He came to Rava now in a dream. He's like, is there anybody who bothers heaven as much as you do? In other words, what? To do miracles. Right? Is there anyone? Right? We cannot forget the Gemara that we literally just had the page before on Chavdal. I mean, it's obviously not a mistake when the Talmud editors put these Gemaras on the same page. What did he say? He said in the story with the son and the daughter, right? By the son, what did he say after he produces the figs, Shaloi Bizmana? He says, Vini, ata hitrachta es kainecha. You made the Rebbeinu Shem a tircha. L'hoitzi teineh perisel, so that the teina tree could give its pear Shaloi Bizmana. Yeah, Yosef Shaloi Bizmana. You made a tircha for the Rebbeinu Shalom. Rava's father comes to him in a dream, says the same thing. And he says to him, Mi'ika de mitra kami shemai kuli hai. On Malay, the father says to Rava in the dream, Shni duchtech, change your place where you sleep. Shani duchtech, you change the place where you sleep. Machar ashke de merashim purya besakini. The next day, they found in his regular normal bed that there were knives in the pillow, knife marks in the pillow. Meaning, Rashi says that the Shadim were very angry, and they had to, and they came after Rava to kill him. And so he saved himself by listening to his father in the dream and changing his place where he slept. This might be another reason that that one should avoid nisim. In other words, it's not just merely to avoid ma'aseh nisim; you shouldn't do business with it, because menakelim is as we've said in the end. But maybe there's also a danger. It's not merely that it's going to take away your zchuyas, but it's also that if you do, in fact, take advantage of nisim, you could be putting yourself into danger because they could be saying that you are bothering heaven too much. Yeah, I was wondering, which I don't think I said yesterday, but I was wondering just for a second to mention. Remember, I pointed out we did this Gemara in Chavdal. I pointed out like at the end of the day, the Gemara says that the Biersi, the Menyukas, he had a very unbelievable donkey. And we said that the Maharsha's reason that this donkey is not discussed much. We only discussed Pinchas Ben Yair's donkey, but not his donkey. I gave my reason, which was different than the Maharsha's, but it was because a person who acts like this, we're not going to mention about his miraculous donkey. Yeah. But the Gemara says about Pinchas Ben Yair and Chulin Zion, the Gemara says that Pinchas Ben Yair was once going to do some Pinchas Shvuyim, and in order to cross the river, he made a miracle happen. Basically, the river split. And then he had to come by. He was going to big mountains. The river split again. And then a guy, sounds something more like an Arab, comes by. And because of Chil Hashem, that maybe the person would say, oh, look at these Jews. They only do them for themselves. Again, the river split a third time. So the Arab could cross. That's not being Matriach the Rebbeinu Shalom. Right, the whole issue with Rabbi Yossi Dimin Yukras was that he had no mercy on his son. Why? Because he said this. How could it be? You mean Matriach Rebbeinu Shalom? And I want to suggest maybe that's why we don't hear about the donkey and the way he talked to his son. And yet, the Akamar, there, Pinchas Ben Yair, we do talk about his donkey, He's not Mashiach to have the river be splitting a few times in order to let the other himself cross, the other Jew cross, the Arab cross. Maybe therefore we should go back to the Marshal's reason and say that the reason was because the donkey, because Ben Yair was worried about for himself. He was machmer on himself, not to eat Shumas Maishvas. Food that wasn't taken off Shumas Maishvas. Whereas the donkey by the Birsid Minyukas is only makber that his master shouldn't get too much money or too little money, but not for himself anything. Don't know. Okay, moving on. So that's the Gemara. We are now going one more story before we get to Mechinim and Daisa. Says the Gemara, Papa Gozer Taanit Asa Mitra. Papa was Gozer Taanit and there was no rain. Didn't work out. Chalash Libe, he was very hungry. His heart, right, was Chalishos, meaning he was weak, he felt faint. Saraf Pinka the Daisa Oboy Rachme V'Asa Mitra. So Saraf Pinka the Daisa means I'm not sure what Saraf is, to burn. But literally what it means, I'm not sure. He basically took a pinka de daisa, a bowl of daisa. Daisa we should remember, right? We had in the brachas in the sixth parak there on Lamed Vav and base. Right? What did Rashi over there explain? What is daisa? Daisa was flour that they crushed up. They took chitim and they were kaitaship and machteshes, and they would take a pestle and a mortar, right? And they would crush it up, make a little porridge out of it. So he ate the daisa. And in order to feel better, Uboy Rachman, again, he davened last mitra. So Amalei Rav Nachman Marushbaisti. Rav Nachman Marushbaisti, the Gemara, the side says by the Araf, that maybe that this is the name of his mother, and this is the mother of Rav Papa. Now, that would mean then that this is his brother. So this would be a nasty line that the brothers are saying, but I'm not sure if that's the simple understanding. And here Rav Nachman Marushbaisti says to Rav Papa, he says, maybe if you eat another porridge bowl, then the rain will come. Right? This is an example of facetious sarcasm, meaning the rain's not coming. So what do? You start eating. This is normative. So the Gemara says, "Ichsif." Rav Papa was embarrassed. And then he had chlisha das, so it was atamitra. Now this the cholash daite should remind us of the Gemaras that we had before about other people who were cholash daite. For example, remember back the Gemara on Chav Dalin, the Marsha Rehunasi was gazer tanisa by a mitra by a racham v'asa mitra, and then he said whatever he said cholash daite v'asa mitra, and we had a few times where it said cholash daite v'asa mitra. Notice in this story what changed. The first time when he davened for rain, Rav Papa was gazer tanisa v'asa mitra. It says cholash libe. His heart was the thing that had chalisha das. The second time was what? Chalash daite. Right? I mean, the first time he wasn't too bothered. He was hungry. That chalisha of his stomach was hurting him, but he didn't have chalisha das. His mind wasn't hurting. When he got embarrassed, when the Ramnachim Bar Bushbaister was making fun of him, so then he had chalisha das. So then he gets to that level where he's mamas tzibrokin. Then he davens again, right? And then the rain comes. All right, so we have now reached the unbelievable stories of Chinim and Daisa. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Chanim ben Daisa, because of the Urcha, Rabbi Chanim was going on the road. Asa, so what happened? Asa Mitra, it started to rain. Amalafan Ben Shlam Kolam, Kluben Nachas, Chanim Bitzar, Pasuk Mitra. Right, because he's in the middle of walking and there's rain, so he can't walk. So he says, I'm Bitzar, everybody else be happy. Nobody else was on the road. So the rain stopped. Kimat l'beis when he got to his home. Everyone is inside. They don't have rain, and I'm benachas. So v'asamich, and then the rain came. Amr Rabbi Yosef, my achanya letzlusa the kain god legabe Rabbi Chanim ben Daisa. What is good is the davening of the kain gadol. Right, the Gemara tells us in Yuma the special tefillah of the kain gadol on Nun Beis that he would say when he's done with the service in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, they would make a special tefillah, and we say this tefillah in the Yom Kippur davening. So he says, what good is that tefillah? The guy Bechinim and Daisa. Bechinim and Daisa could literally counteract, countermand, cancel out as that tefillah, the tefillah of the Kohen Gadol. The Tanan, because we know that the Kohen Gadol would say as follows: "Hey, mispal tefillah katsara." The Kohen Gadol would say a short tefillah b'beis hachitzon on his way out of the Kodesh HaKadosh. And my matzi, what did he say? Rav Barada, the Amri Tefay Mishmid, Rav Yehudi, he was in the Fanach Hashem, like in a Shetei Hashon Azal, Yeshuma Shchuna, right? It should be a nice, good, rainy and hot year. So Zimor Shchuna Ma'asi, is this Shchuna, this very hot year, is this a good thing? Adrab Griyusi, isn't it a bad thing? Ela im Shchuna take Yeshuma Cholula. If it's going to be very hot, it should also be very wet and moist. So it should be a good year of rain, right? And if it's too hot, there should be a lot of rain. One of the things that the Kohen Gadol says that we shouldn't listen to the tefillah of the Oved Rachim, right? The people who are coming to be the regal, etc., going back to their homes. Don't listen to them, Hashem. Why not? Because you listen to them, the rain's not going to come. We need the rain. We need the rain. So that's the tefillah of the Kohen Gadol. And here you have what? Rabbi Chiya ben Daisa walk in, and he says, I'm not. So the path is too muddy. It's too wet for me. The rain stopped. He can go and counsel or countermand the tefillah of the Kohen Gadol. Yeah. Rav Acha, the son of Rava, finished off Messiah. He finished off this tefillah, the name of Rabbi Yehuda, lo yadi avid shulta min beis Yehuda, right? The rule, the power shouldn't leave the house of Yehuda. V'ayu amchi Yisrael tzrichim l'sparn zemizev lo l'hamachem. And the Jewish people shouldn't be dependent on one another or on others in order to be able to get by. They should be able to have their own parnasa, be able to depend on themselves. So what do you see from here? Rabbi Mendoza obviously is very close to the Rebbeinu Shalom. He's able to get sort of private miracles on an as needed or as wanted basis. We had this Gemara in Baruch Shid Zayin. That Yehuda says, name of Rav, B'chol yom v'yom baskol yotzeit v'omer skol and kula nizem mishul chanina b'ni. V'chanina b'ni dai b'karav charuv me'erev Shabbos l'erev Shabbos. Right? Chanina ben Dosa says that tzaddik, he sustains the whole world. And he himself was sustained on a little bit of carobs, right? The same of Shemar Yechai had the carobs, that's what he ate. Tell to Rabbi Chaim ben Dosa. He ate a bunch of carobs, that was how he survived. Meaning he was incredibly poor and just was surviving on the carobs alone, and that's because he was able to sustain the whole world. Says the Regila de Bisu, the Mechmet Hanur Kol Mali de Shabbato. The Imams were very poor. Nevertheless, despite their poverty, his wife would be machmet tanur. She would light up the oven every Shabbos. V'shad yekach would make it smoke. Mishum kisuf. We turn the page on of Ham and Aleph. She was very ashamed of the fact that she had no money, and so in order to sort of remove some of that shame, so and what do you call it? The wife would light up her oven so it would smoke. And people think she also is making food for Erev Shabbos. She was making food on Shabbos, for Shabbos. Says the Gemara, Bishta. She had mamish an evil witch of a neighbor. Amra, the neighbor said, Michli, let's see. Yadana de Leslu, I know that she has nothing. My kulehai, what is this old prep, the smoke, the things? Azlav Tafar Bava. She went and knocked on the door. She was rapping on the door. She wants to come inside, right? Conveniently, because she wants to see, what is this woman doing when she has no money, no food, and yet smoke's coming out of her oven. The wife was so ashamed. And she went into some inner room. Right? If you look at another way to read it, you can read it indoor. Right? It sounds almost like he went indoors, further indoors. This Avila Nisa the Chazla Tanur Marlachma. So this woman, she's not taking out for an answer. She barged into the house, and there was an ace that happened that the oven is full, mole lachma, mamish full of bread. The agna mole lisha, and the bowl is full of dough. Amrle. So the woman, this evil neighbor who barged into the house, starts saying, "Planisa, Planisa," right? Whatever her name was, plenty. Isim masa. Go get your bread shovel or whatever it is that they used to take the bread out. Go get it. Because your bread is being burned. Amrale. So the wife responds, Af ana lahafi aili. So she says, she obviously came out of her hiding place, and she says, "Oh, that's what I was getting is my bread shovel." So the Gemara says, Tanya Afhi Lahavi merda nichnasa. Right? We have another tradition, another sort of a brisa that says that she would do this on a weekly basis. This wasn't like a rarity because of the evil neighbor. This version is saying, "Afi lahavi merda nichnasa," that she said that she was going to get the shovel. Why? This wasn't the first time. She was a Melumet Benisim, like we saw already before. And the Gemara, there's certain people that are Melumet Benisim, right? We have the Gemara Iliyad Zayin also with Rav Shem Rechai. Also, Melumet Benisim, people who get a lot of Nisim. Again, how does this fit with people who avoid Nisim? The topic to be further thought about. So says the Gemara, Amrle, and this is now another Maisa. Amrle Devisu, the wife of Chanim and Daisa says to him, Ad Amos, Nazel, Vinitstair, Kule Hai. How long are we going to be in such sorrow? We're so poor. Life is so hard. How much longer do we have to bear with this? So Amrle, he says to her, My Navid. So what do you want me to do? She says, Davin, we should get something from heaven. So he davins Yosef in pieces yad. So like a heavenly hand comes out from heaven. The Yavule Chadik Kara de Pesur de Davin gives it like what looks like a leg of a golden table. They get a golden leg. Now, this version of the Gemara here has a bunch of parentheses, but essentially we'll go with Rashi's understanding that Chazia B'Chalma, she then saw in a dream that night. I see the tzaddik that all the tzaddikim the Achli absurd the David is a class carry. She sees that these tzaddikim are eating on a table that has three golden legs. And she, the Ihu, Aichas absurd the Trekar, and she's eating on a table that's shaky, right? It only has two legs, golden legs. So Amar Law. So when she tells him of what happened, he says to her, Nechla the Mechal Achli Kuli Am absurd the Mishalim, but none absurd the Mechasa. Is it okay with you that we're eating on a table that's missing a leg and everyone else is eating on a table that has all the legs? Amar Le, my Navid. Right? So she said, what can we do about it? Meaning, I'm okay to give back the leg, but what do we do? So boy Rachman the Neshkalim Minach. So they daven that they should take away the leg from him. Boy Rachman Shaklu. They daven and in fact heaven came back and took away the golden leg. Tana Gadol Hayanes Acharon Yesim and Arishan is bigger that the second ace have taken away the leg than giving them the leg. Why did we have the Yav Mishkal Shakli? Because we know that sometimes having gives, but to take that's not common. Fine. So that is story number two. Again, we have very limited time. Can't get into. Maybe we'll have a little time more tomorrow. I'm not sure. See if we're going to explore this a little. But we have another story. On one Shabbos, he saw his daughter, the Havia said that she was very upset. Amalei Biti. So he says to her, why are you so upset? Lamayat Sivas, why are you so upset? Amalei Kali Shal Chemes Neschalaf Libikli Shal Shemen. I made a mistake. I tried to make a lighting for Shabbos candles of vinegar instead of the wine, instead of the oil. It locked them in Arla Shabbos, and it's not worked. The oil burns and not the vinegar. So Amar Labiti Ma'ich. Why are you so nervous? Misha Amar Lashem V'Yidlik Hu Yom Lachemetz V'Yidlik. What's the difference? The one who says that the oil burns can say vinegar burns. Tana Hayadelek V'Haylek Kalayim Kuli Achi Avim Min Ar Lavdala. Mamish will stay the whole Shabbos as vinegar was lit until Avdala. Again, this fundamental idea is literally underlies all of Jewish philosophy and theology, which is nature is a miracle. Nature is not real. It's itself miraculous. The fact that we have gravity, the fact that we have all these things, the fact that these things exist is itself miraculous. So if you go back to the fundamentals in the same way that we can have gravity this way, we can have gravity that way, it could all happen at the level of the Rebbeinu Shalom. You can change the laws of nature. So you can make vinegar burn the same way. If you view everything as miraculous, then there's no difference. Yeah, that's the end of that story. We have one more story of Rechim and Daisa, which leads us to then a third story or fourth story. I forget exactly how many we have. So Rechim and Daisa have Hanach easy. He had a bunch of goats. Amralei Kamasidan. His neighbor said, "Your goats are ruining it for us. Their mom is destroying everything." Amrei Kamasidan Nechalinu Dube. Because if they are hurting you, then let them be eaten by bears. And if not, And if not, then each one of them should come back bringing a beer in their horns. Havale hai hi shivta the cup banya besa. Right? I'm sorry, did I skip? Yeah, Luorta, I skipped. Luorta, Icy Kochada V'chada, Dubi V'kanan. In the night, they each came back with a bunch of beers in their horns, showing that they were not hurting their neighbors. Havli Shivta the Kabanya base, there was a neighbor of his that was building a house, but Motik Shuri and Mamish, the beams didn't reach the walls. Asa the Kamar Amalei bin Sibay Sivla come to Kishuri. And I was building a house and we messed up badly. The beams don't reach the walls. So Amar Lamash Mechal, he says, remember like Ritz ben Eliyashiv we had. He said, "What's your name?" Amrle Iku. My name is Iku. So Amr Iku Nimti Kishurayich. So he said, "Let your beams reach the walls." Tani Giyachi Etzi Amalakan, Mamish, the beams reached the walls and went over the walls, right? So it was able to be utilized as a house. The Yesharman sniffing Asam that they made some sort of new rooms. That's how much wider the beams got. Tanya Palima, Aimer Palima is not something we have too many times in Shas. We have him in the end of Kedusha. And a few places in Shas, we have Palima. He said, Ani Reisi Bayis. He says, I saw that house of Chalim and Daisav Karois of Yertes Amlakan Amlakan. And Mamish went one arm on each side. That's how big the beams were. Amruli by Zeh Shakira Reb Chalim and Daisav. This is the house of Chalim and Daisav built with his tefillos. Fred, the Gemara now, unbelievable question. Rabbi Chanina ben Daisa, Meichan Havel Izim. How did Chanina ben Daisa have goats? V'ha'ani, Havi, he was so poor. Don't we know it's an open halacha? You're not allowed to raise goats in the land of Israel. That's considered to be what? Stealing, because the goats they eat everywhere. Amar Pinchas, or Pinchas says, "Ma'asav avar adam echad al Pesach Beisei." The way he got the goats was that there was once somebody who was walking by his house, and he had a basket of chickens, and he left them there. Matzos and Ish and his wife, Matzos and Ish, and his wife found them. Amar law, I'll take them with it. And he told you we have to wash these chickens in case the owner comes back, and you can't eat the eggs. They raised the whole flock of chickens, and they're making them crazy, all these chickens. And so they sold the chickens, they bought goats. One time, and these were the goats that had the beards. And one time, it was a person going by who had lost the chickens. I left my chickens over here. Shama Rabbi Chanina. Amar lo yesh b'loch b'hen sim. He says, you have a sim for this? Amar lo hein. Nasat lo sim, not lo seizin. B'hen hen easy the ice who do b'kanai. These are the goats that brought the beers back in the horns. So we have to stop over here.